So, Amit, there is one question which is common from everyone, and so many people have filled the form and asked the same question, that what exactly happens once we submit? What are the stages through which the application goes through, and how is it
Okay.
decided that this application will eventually be shortlisted for the interview and this will not? So, if you can, delineate that process and demystify it, I think it would literally answer the queries of everyone who is present in this call.
Sure. So once we get the applications on board, each application is reviewed by a reviewer, and they give quantitative scores to the application. And so three reviewers will give a score to an application. The average of the three will become the profile score of the applicant. And profile score typically consists of your academics, your work experience, your essays, your letters of recommendation, and your GMAT and GRE score. Now, each of them will have different weightages. Some will have higher, some will have lower, but none of them is so high that, if you crack that one particular thing, you'll directly get it. No. None of them is so low that if you don't do really bad in that, you will still get through. No, not like that. So their weightages, and all of them have quite similar weightages in the overall scheme of things. Now, the profile score, every year, the AdCom will meet before the each round, and they'll decide on a particular cutoff for the profile score above which people are called for the interview. Now, everybody who has a cutoff score, a score higher than the cutoff score, will be called for the interview. And in the interview, the ALMs will interview the candidate, and they'll give them an interview score. And this interview score is added to your profile score in a ratio to get your overall score, which determines offers and scholarships for the candidates. So we not look at each particular application in individuality, but we look at it holistically and in comparison to the other applications. Hence the profile score cutoffs and overall cutoffs.
So, Amit, the profile score that you talked about, is there a weightage for diversity as well? Because there are a certain, for example, during my time, there was a set of academic backgrounds which were available for diversity scholarship. My background was one of them. So, is there a separate weightage for diversity also, that if you belong to a diverse background, some weightage would be added to that?
So diversity weightage is part of your work experience.
Okay.
So we will look at it. There's no separate thing as diversity per se in the evaluation process. We look at it in the work experience itself. So somebody who is diverse, has a different work experience, or somebody who has come from a different academic background, they might get slightly higher scores in those areas. But in a sense, we don't have something like academic diversity or other diversity quotas per se. So at ISB, the beauty of the whole process is there are no quotas for anything.
Right.
It's a single evaluation process, but of course we give enough weightages to different people on different backgrounds to be able to get through that particular process.
Okay. So when we talk about academics, Amit, so academics consist of 10th, 12th, and graduation. And looking at all these three things, there will be a weightage for academics. Am I right?
That's right. That's right.
And then there will be a separate weightage for GMAT or GRE.
Yes, there's a separate weightage for GMAT and GRE. So academics, work experience, the test score, GMAT or GRE. These are the three key ones. Then essays and LOR also have a weightage, and they also serve a dual purpose. Essays and LOR also are looked at the time of interview. So when the ALMs come for the interview, they will look at your essays and LORs, and most of the questions will be from those aspects as well. So that's the dual purpose. GMAT and GMAT scores or academic scores are not part of the interview per se. So interviewers will not know what is your GMAT score or what is your academic scores, but they'll know your qualitative factors, like what college you studied in, what is your work experience like, what achievements, responsibilities, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, profile score is more of a quantitative metric, and interview is more of a qualitative assessment of the candidate.
Got it. So, Amit, so I had a mentee. He graduated this year, and he had just a 680 in GMAT. And he not only got to ISB, he was also one of the Dean's Lister. And then when I was talking to him, he mentioned that the reason that he think he easily got into ISB was because though he had a lower GMAT than the average, he had 10 out of 10 GPA in 10th, 96% in and a gold during graduation. So I think whatever weightage he lost because of his GMAT score, he made up for that through his academics. Am I thinking
Academics,
in the right
exactly,
direction?
exactly. So even have more than made it up because 618 by itself is not very far from the average score. So although it's less than average, but it's not that bad a score. People
Yeah,
with 640, 650 are also in the class, but I'll not suggest people to apply with that score. Try and get a higher score is what I suggest. Although you may get in with 640, 650, it's always good to have a buffer. So
right.
670, 680 is still a decent score to apply to a ISB. If with the average profile, of course, if you have diversity quotient, your work experiences are diverse, your undergrad degrees are diverse, you can still look at lesser score. And by the way, the range for last year, this current class is 530 to 780. So there's somebody in the class with 530 also. But the
Oh,
disclaimer here is that the 530 person was somebody with an international experience,
right.
international passport, and is also worked in India for 10 and a half years at senior leadership roles in a top MNC company. So that all those also things also matter. So if you have that kind of experience, lower GMAT scores can also do. But I'll always suggest candidates to go as close to the average as possible. And the average last year was 710.
Median was 710, average was
Median
716.
was 17, average was 760, correct. Median was 710, average is 760.
And there's been so many doubts about GRE. People are saying it's 325, but then I saw someone from the current batch sent me a picture from the orientation week info session that it is actually 330. So
It's
what number
330.
is
This
correct?
year, yeah, this year it's 330. So it keeps varying year on year depending upon the pool people apply and the kind of people who get in. So this year the range is 319 to 338, and the average and median are 330. 329 to 330 is the average and the median for GRE. Last year the range was 39 or 36 to 338, and in between other years was 330. So it keeps varying in the lower end. But yeah, the averages have been hovering around 327, 329, 330 for the last 3 years.
Right. So that 330 information is correct because many people were not
Correct.
able to believe that how did it increase so much. Srihari, can I request you to mute yourself, please? Thank you. Okay, perfect. So that it's not a mystery anymore because there have been a lot of discussion on the group what exactly is the GRE score. Great. So one more thing that people keep asking, Amit, is do you have a certain number of seats reserved for R1 and then for R2 and then for R3, beyond which you will not fill the seats or something like that?
No, there are no quotas for any rounds. So it's not like that, we want to take only this people in round one or round two or round three. So as I mentioned earlier, it's all on the cutoffs, right? So cutoffs are pre-decided at the beginning of the year, the profile score cutoffs and the eventual overall cutoffs. So anybody who meets the overall cutoff will make an offer, even if it's 70% of the class or even if it's just 30% of the class, right? And then uh, there'll be a band for waitlists and then there'll be a band for rejects, right? So if in round one, if we have lesser number of people in round one this let's say in a particular year, then the chances of waitlist movement becomes higher because then the cutoff will come down eventually. Cutoffs will only come down, it not go up, because if we give a cutoff in round one, it can't be that round three the cutoff is higher
Right.
because there has to be a fair field for all the three rounds.
Also, many people are not able to take their GMAT or GRE by the time
Correct.
by the time it's the time for deadline of round one, and
Correct.
maybe that's the reason round one becomes a bit easier to convert. Is that correct?
It's not easier to convert, I would say, because scores are similar across the three rounds.
Hmm.
But round one is, yeah, technically, you're right in a sense.
Less
Because,
crowded.
yeah, because what you mentioned, technically, you're right. But in terms of real life applying, people apply at different times, right?
Hmm.
So, more or less, that evens out. But
Okay.
if you look at in a technical field, in an ideal world, if 100 people apply in round one and all of them are good, then we might give offers to all 100 and give scholarships to 80. And then that leaves little seats for the other two rounds. But that's what happens in an ideal world. But in real life, more or less, the seats are distributed accordingly.
Okay.
So, but if we have to talk about which round to apply, my advice to people will be that apply when you are ready. So don't just rush your application because you want to target one round, or don't wait for a particular round. If you're ready, if you think your application is right, your GMAT score is the best one you can get, and your essays are all done, apply it in that particular round. And earlier you apply, the better, because there are two reasons to it. One is if you apply early in round one, your results will come by November 8th.
Yeah.
a date for round 1. For round 2, the results will come in February first week. So you have almost 5 months to plan your ISB journey if you get an offer in round 1. While in round 2, you only have less than 3 months. So people who want to give the notice periods, or people who want to integrate in the batch as such, form those groups beforehand, it becomes advantageous if you have offer early from ISB.
Right. Thank you, Amit. One more burning question, that is scholarship. So very, very happy to share with you that in the current batch, 2 of my mentees got the scholarship, one with a massive scholarship of 16.5 lakhs and the other got 14.5 lakhs. Both are extremely, both are female applicant, and one is from a very diverse background. She is a dentist like me, and then she worked in SBI as a credit manager. And the other one is also very promising. She had been an ex-UPSC aspirant and had great command on geopolitics and general awareness. And she had national level quizzes all over the country. So just wondering, how is scholarship decided? Of course, we worked very hard for their application, and they were extremely diligent in their application. I mean, they ended up talking to 9 or 10 alums and re-revision and everything. Great preparation for interview as well. Totally deserving, both of them. But I still don't know how is it decided. So can you please describe the scholarship?
Sure. So I'll talk about scholarship as well. So before that, I just wanted to also mention that, we have increased the quantum and number of scholarships, the amount of scholarships in the last few years, to an extent that now we are competing with the top global B schools in terms of the scholarships offered. So around 25% of the batch every year gets some sort of scholarship or other at the cohort, and that's around 880 people. So you can do the math. Now, in terms of scholarships, how do we give scholarships? There are 2 scholarships for people when they're applying to ISB. One is a merit scholarship. The second is a merit cum means scholarship, or the need-based scholarship. Now, for merit scholarship, everybody by default is eligible for the scholarship. Because you, even if you apply or not, we'll still consider you for the scholarships. And the criteria here is simple: your performance in the ISB selection process. And that includes your overall score. So I'll talk about a few things: profile score, interview score. So if you do good in all the parameters, and if your overall score is on the higher end, the chances of scholarships are very high. And that decides your scholarship, a chance in merit scholarships. And here we offer up to 100% of tuition fee waivers to candidates, and tuition fee now being around 26.5 lakhs. So that's maximum you can expect in round 1. Round 2, around 75% of the tuition fee waivers is what we are offering to candidates, round 2 and round 3. Now, the second scholarship is the merit cum need scholarship. So here, people whose family income is less than 18 lakhs per annum. So that is yourself, your family, might be your parents, or your spouse if you're married. Their family income put together should be less than 18 lakhs per annum, and you can apply for the need-based scholarship. So here again, the criteria is one essay which you write in the application for merit cum need scholarship, and your performance in the selection process. Basis on your need and your performance, will give you waivers, tuition fee waivers. Could be anywhere up to 25 lakhs for merit cum need scholarships. So congratulations to the two of your mentees who got very high scholarships. So these are on the higher end, I would say. Both of them have got scholarships. So yes.
Both were very, very hardworking, and I knew for sure that they will get an admit. But when they got the scholarship, even it blew me over, because unfortunately, during my time, the amount was not that much. I mean, there were 100% and 50%, but not that. Even though I got a diversity scholarship during my time, merit on diversity, I think it was all during my time.
Right. Yeah. Yes, we also have that merit on diversity scholarship this time also. That's separate from merit. So that is also on the diversity quotient per se. So that also we have for candidates. But I talk about merit scholarship also. Now this year, last few years, I think since we graduated, we have increased the quantum to a very high extent now. So, but still, I think the candidates who got scholarships from your mentees would be really deserving to get the amount which they actually got.
Right. So, just because we talked about diversity scholarship, can you please throw some light on diversity scholarship as well?
So diversity scholarship is offered to candidates who, come in with a diverse work experience. It could be something of the ordinary. So people like yourself, coming from the medical background, or people who come from backgrounds which traditionally do not look up to doing an STEM kind of a program or a management program, right? So armed forces, is one. People from very underrepresented like arts, people who are from the sports background, people who are from the uh, sciences which are not very much taught courses. So all those courses, if they can show some level of expertise and achievement in that field, and then are looking to do an MBA with a clear vision of what they want to get out of the program. So for such candidates, we also offer the merit cum diversity scholarship. So the thing here is not just diversity, but also your merit component. But you need to showcase how an MBA is beneficial to a career and what you intend to do post MBA. So for somebody who's a sports person, I can give an example. Last year we had somebody who was a world number 13 badminton player at a time, and he came into ISB with a very clear-cut vision of what he wanted to be, and now he is in Bain& Company. And this year we have somebody who has played for KKR, Kolkata Knight Riders, and also was a Ranji Trophy captain earlier for his team. He's in the class now, and he also wants to go back to sports management. So those kind of a vision is also what we look at while giving scholarship.
Talking about badminton, I just got remembered of another of my mentees, class of 2022, Abhida Pandit. She was a national level badminton player, and she had for India at least 2 or 3 times. She joined as a product manager, I think, at Navi. She is class of 2022. She's already.
Yes, I remember that her as well. So and in the subsequent class we had I forget the gentleman's name, but he was also a national champion in badminton. He played for the country as well. Ajay Jairam was there in the next batch.
I think I saw his LinkedIn. Yes. Yes. And that famous, my namesake Anshul Kothari was in my batch. The Asian Games swimming champion. Yes, and I think he's still in sports management.
He's still in sports management. So a lot of such names. But I also want to tell the audience that it's not just that you have to have very high level of achievements. Even if in your particular field you have a diversity and you are expert in your field, it could not be very well known like national level sports. But still, if you have achieved something, you are still eligible for scholarship. So don't get disappointed that only somebody who like Ajay Jairam or Virendra Skina would only get those scholarships.
No, that notion is not there at all. I mean, that at least the people who are in my group, they already know that ISP, I mean, of course, a strong profile is important, but it's less about a strong profile and a weak profile, but more about a strong application and a weak application.
Right.
Even if you might think that your profile is not really good, but if you portray yourself and your strength properly in the application and eventually in the interview, you always have a strong chance. So that is pretty much clear about ISP for all of us. And I'm glad that the school has continued that notion and that ethics of admitting students, because that was the same during my time also. Perfect. There's one question. You talked about weightage to work experience. So, and then when we look at the batch, the average work experience is decreasing every year. Now, even in the current the last batch which graduated, people with more than 8 or 10 years of work experience are already only 50 to 60 people. So is there any disadvantage for people who have more work experience? Is the weightage less for them?
No, not really. There's no bias against people who have higher work experience. So we do not have any separate process for them. The same process of profile score or interview score. But for people with work experience, one thing is very important for them is that they have to be clear in terms of their career goals, and they have to have that clarity about their skill sets. Because one thing about people with higher work experience is that they have 10 years of work experience, and they cannot wish away their prior work experience. That work experience is going to stay with them, and they should be aware of how can they transfer those skills to a different industry or a different organization or different work, and which all industry they want to target. That clarity is what we expect from them in the essays and the interviews. So that is the only thing I'll say. People with higher work experience need to be cognizant of a clear-cut reason for doing an MBA at this stage in their career, and what are they targeting post MBA, or what areas do they think they would want to work in, given their prior background. Right. So somebody with 8 years or 9 years work, you just can't totally say, I'll forget my 8 years and now I'll just move on to something different. But those 8 years will count. Now, if not directly, indirectly, if you're an engineer, it will count as your logical skills or analytical skills, which you can use somewhere else. So that's my advice to people with higher years of work experience. but there's no bias as such in the application process.
I really hope everyone is listening, because there is this one common, I would say, wrong thought process that is floating among applicants, that ISB is decreasing the work X and preferring younger and younger people every year. So there are people I know who are not even ready to apply to ISB just because they have higher work X. They have decided to apply to IIMs. So I hope some of them have joined this call. So I hope that myth is busted for one.
Sure. So exactly, and if you look at people with the higher work experience, 8+ years of work experience, we are around 70 odd people in this year's class per se.
Right.
And if you look at 5+, it will be easy. It will easily be more than around 150 to 200 people in the class, is what my understanding is, and that is higher than any of the IIM's overall class.
Yes.
So you're getting best with both the worlds. You're getting to interact with the younger folks, as well as you're having a peer group of people of your particular interests and work experience. So that's what I'll want people to consider before they take a call on this.
Yeah, and if you remember Dheeraj Kaushik from last year, he was the president of the Senior Executive Club. He was also one of my mentees, and his application and entire process went very smoothly. I mean, he said, I
Yes.
didn't face any challenge during the interview, and things turned out without really
Yes.
having to go through some stressful interview or a lot of grilling around work experience and all, because he was very clear on his career path. He had made a plan for himself. He communicated the same. So I kept giving his example to people with higher work ex. But of course, it has come from the horse mouth, so I'm pretty sure people will agree and people will go ahead and apply.
Sure.
I mean, are there scholarship reserved for R1, some for R2, or some for R3, or something like that?
Yes, we try to give scholarships across each round to reserving candidates. So they are not reserved per se, but we want to have people from all the 3 rounds have equal access to scholarships, but there's always a chance that people in our earlier rounds get more scholarships. And also in terms of quantum of scholarships, in round 1, we give maximum 100% scholarships,
Yes.
100% of tuition fee waivers, and round 2 and 3, 75% of tuition fee waivers. But in terms of number of scholarships, it's almost same there. So it's again on the cutoffs, and if you're meeting the cutoff, you're most likely getting a scholarship as well.
Okay, got it. Nipun, again, one of the most common questions: why did ISB change the entire application topics this year? And
Sure.
There is another perception that people are saying that is it now heavily focused on extracurricular, which is definitely not the case. I disagree. But since people have still asked that, I want to know what was the thought process that went behind taking this decision, and eventually what are the expectations of the outcome this time from
Sure. Sure. So if you look at the essays, first is that we do keep changing essays every 2 to 3 years to make it more current.
Always remained the same. This time it has changed as well.
Yes. I'll come to why it has happened. So now this year, when we relooked at the essays, the entire admission committee and a lot of people behind that who have been involved in selecting candidates, interviewing candidates, reviewing the profiles. So we felt that we need to know candidates better in terms of their clarity, in terms of the self-awareness and the uniqueness of their thoughts. Hence, the 2 essays, if you look at the first and the second essay, they are both on the self-awareness of the candidates and their personal characteristics and their thought process. So that's the whole idea of getting to know them better as people. Now about the career goals. So we always used to have this career goals essay till last year, and this year it's been made mandatory. Now, the thought process behind this is that we want candidates
optional.
Optional. It's optional. Sorry, we made optional, non-mandatory. Yeah. So the thought process behind this is that we want people to come in with an open mind. We don't want them to come and say that I want to go into consulting, or I want to go into marketing, or I want to go into finance right off in the essay itself. And there are a lot of people who come into ISB who undergo the first 3.5 terms, the core courses, and then the wide choices they have, the wide array of information they have, they realize that this is my interest and not this, which I came with an open mind, which I came prior to ISB. So hence, to encourage people that if you don't have a career goal right now, it's okay. You don't need to make one for the purpose of writing in the essay, right? Come with an open mind, explore what we have to offer, and then you can decide on what you want to go. That also is fine. So that's why the third essay is not. I mean, it's optional, so that you don't have to write it if you don't have uh, a concrete goal right now. If you have, please feel free, because that's what we'll discuss in the interview as well. And we felt that in the interviews earlier that people would force feed an idea and come in the essay that I want to into consulting, but then we realize that's not exactly what they might want to do. So hence the thought process.
Will there be any changes in the instructions to the panelists like me for the interview? Because last year we went through a video module, which was a new video module by Professor Kanish
Mhm.
Sinha on how to take
Mhm.
interviews. Before that, there was another module from the admission
Mhm.
committee on how to take interviews.
Mhm.
So because the essays have changed, should we as panelists and I mean other ISB alums as well who will be volunteering for the interview, should we expect some change in some directions to us, some instructions to
I
us?
I don't think so. We'll be changing this year because we
Hmm.
did last year. And the changing of essays also is the same step which we're continuing from the last year's thought process. So last year we had that new video come in and the new things come in. So from the panelist point of view, I don't think there are any more changes now. It's going to be the same as what we had earlier for the panelists.
Okay, but because this time you, as you mentioned, that people should come with an open mind and not really be
Mhm.
fixated about a particular post and be a short-term goal. So
Mhm.
will that still be discussed during interview or will it not be?
So it can be discussed.
Okay.
The panelists can ask them,
Hmm.
because typically when you write in an essay, it's there in front of the panelists. So panelists have the information which they want to talk about. Now,
Right.
if somebody has opted not to mention the information, so panelists might not have something to go on that. Can still ask those questions, and the candidate can answer accordingly, whatever they feel. But there's nothing concrete in the application which you can cross verify from the candidates. So that's
Right.
the idea behind that.
Right. And another question, which is really, making everyone lose their peace of mind. This GMAT new pattern, what is ISB's take on it? What exactly is
Sure.
happening with GMAT focused edition? Will ISB accept it whenever it goes live or whatever is the decision?
Sure. So yes, we will accept it whenever it goes live, and we will accept the classical GMAT also, the current GMAT as we call it. But what we hear is that the classical GMAT will be phased out by the end of next year, and there will only be one GMAT which stays, the shorter format. So essentially, the GMAT focus is nothing but a shorter format of the older GMAT, which is going to continue to go. So right now we're accepting both. For round one, it will be only classical GMAT, because I think the focus GMAT will not have
True,
started by then. And
true.
even when it starts, we'll still accept the classical as well. And we'll keep accepting it for the next 5 years, because the scores are valid for 5 years. So whether the candidate wants to take focus or classical, it's your choice, whatever you feel comfortable. But my opinion is that, which is something which is already established, you know something about it. So that is something which I would have ideally preferred. But it's up to the candidate's choices. And we have the conversion. So whatever you take, we have the conversion scales to ensure that you get a fair chance whether you take a focus edition or a classical edition.
Perfect.
So we
Because
work closely with GMAT and have those scales ready already.
I know so many people who are just waiting for the focused edition because they feel it would make it easier to get into the school, even though it doesn't make sense because it's a new edition and there will be teething issues, right? You
Exactly.
have
And
to
there'll
get
be issues.
acquainted
Yeah.
with the new topics because there is a new topic as well this time,
Mhm.
and also
Yes.
some topic have been omitted like sentence correction. So
Right.
again, even my advice to everyone is that please take the older one only because if you are accustomed to that topic and apply as soon as possible. Uh, Thanks, Amit. I do not have any more questions. So if you have your presentation and if you want to show it to everyone, I mean, I leave it to you.
So we can take, I think, questions in the chat from the students if they want to ask any questions. So I think somebody mentioned about the deadline for round two. So deadline for round two would be the first Sunday of December mostly. So it's not
Right.
finalized, but it usually is the first week of December. And this year also we're most likely going to go ahead with the same date, unless some things pan out. We have a festival or something else on that particular day. So that round two deadline is going to be first week of December mostly. Uh, in terms of the question on GMAT, will continue with new tests after a classical version after a lot of focusation? Yes, they will. So what we understand is that the GMAT classical test will continue till the next year, at least till next March is what we understand. And beyond that, they might look at phasing it out eventually. So, but we'll keep accepting classical scores for next 5 years after they have been taken, so that they are there. So,
There
yeah,
is one more personal question to directed at you, Amit. It is in the forms that we had floated in our group. That as an alumni of IIM Calcutta and now an associate director at ISB, director of admission at ISB, what difference do you see in the structure of PGP program at ISB, and maybe while comparing it to I think it is called MBAX in IIM Calcutta, the 1
it's
year.
called PGP, PGDM. So I did a 2-year program. So
Okay.
I can compare the 2-year one with the 1 year at ISB. Definitely, I can do that. So in the 2-year program at IIM Calcutta, we have 2 years. The first year we have 3 terms, and we take around 15 core courses, right? And in the second year we have again 3 terms, and we take around 17 to 18 electives. You could take around 18 to 19 also, depending upon your this thing, but 17 is minimum, and you can take around 19 electives maximum in the second year. And for those 19 electives, you have a choice of 80 plus electives to choose from in the IIM Calcutta 2-year program. Now let's talk about ISB. In the ISB, first 3.5 terms, you study 16 core courses.
Yeah.
So almost similar to the first year at IMC. And the next 4.5 term, you take between 17 to 18 or 19 electives, and for which you have 80 plus electives to choose from. So again, similar there. Now the difference is in terms of the internship, which we have in between 1 year, first year and second year. And why do we need to have an internship in a 2-year program? Because most of my peers at IIM Calcutta were people with 0 years of work experience or 1 year of work experience. I think 60 to 65% of the class was with less than 1 year of work experience. And in the second year, you start the case studies there. And for case studies, what do you need? You need to have an exposure to work environment and diversity in the classroom. So hence the internship is mandatory before you start the case studies in the 2-year program. At ISB, you don't need that because you already have 2 years of work experience in the class even before you start your first term. So the internship is not required. Apart from that, you have the course starts in June there and ends by March. Here it starts in April and ends in April. So here it's a full 52-week program or a 1-year program. That's more like 16 months program. So essentially 16 months is condensed to a 12 months program at ISB, which saves 1 year of your time. So that's what I will let the audience, decide what's better for them, a 1 year or a 2-year. But in my opinion, a 1 year is for somebody who has work experience and does not want to be away from industry for a long time, and they are already earning salaries which they will look at as an opportunity cost of the second year of the program.
Right. So there is one question which I found very interesting, which I want to read it for you, Amit. That would the scale of the company matter in deciding the interview shortlist or the impact made by the candidate? I already have the answer to this, but I would expect you to.
Exactly. So it's of course, the impact which you make or the progression which you have shown in your work experience, right? Progression could be in any way. The impact, the projects you have worked on, international exposure, promotions, salary rises, or your higher responsibilities, and so on and so forth, right? So that makes more difference. You could be working in a top organization, but doing the same role for 4 years, while working in a small startup. You would have experienced the whole gamut of operations or marketing or sales. The second experience is, of course, the more valuable of that, right? Same thing we look at ISB.
Right. Also, a follow-up question on that: does the UG college brand matters? I also know the answer, but please.
Yeah. So again, it's about what you've done in your UG, right?
Right.
The marks, the marks have more weightage than your brand. Of course, brand will also carry some weightage here because it's also a function of how you got into the particular institute. If it's an IIT or NIT, they're competitive versus a tier 3 college. But once you get in, if you scored well in the college versus somebody who's gotten but it's not that well, you will still leapfrog that particular person because the marks have more weightage. What you do what skill sets you gain, those are more weightages than the entrance examination or the gate which you've crossed.
So talking about, again, going back to the diversity point, what exactly is considered as diversity? Only the academic background or also the professional work experience? Because
Professional
someone
work.
has asked, would graduating in a particular field and then working in a completely different field be considered under work ex diversity?
Okay, so both academic diversity, work ex diversity, diversity of interest, and all those things also are considered as diversity. But if you're an engineer working in an NGO, that will not be considered as a diversity per se, right? It's not about your choices. It's about what you've gained in a particular niche area. So if you are from a diverse background, let's say if you're chosen to do a pharmacy course, that could to an extent be a diversity. But an
Right.
engineer cannot say I'm working in a non-engineering field, that's why I'm a diverse candidate. No, that's not diversity.
Right. There is one question from one of our group members, that do you have any acceptance for someone with a disability, like a
Yes,
physical disability?
we do definitely. And our campus is disabled friendly campus. Now the thing is, cross check with the admissions team before you apply on the type and level of disability. If your disability, doesn't impede you in learning process in any way, then it's perfectly fine, right? So, but if you require a lot of special assistance, then let us know in advance. A team can work on that and help you in the learning process per se. So, what is a disability and the type of disability is something you'll reach out to us before applying, and then we can guide you accordingly. So every year, I think we have people who are specially able, as I like to as I call them, who are there in the cohort. People with maybe visual disability, people with hearing disabilities, people with mobile disability orders. We have people every year, and they are part of the cohort. But I'll advise you to check up before the admissions team on the requirements per se, so that you don't miss out on any learning experience at ISB.
Right. And it's again a repetitive question, but asked in a different way. So I will still pose this. Which has more weightage, GMAT score or the application?
GMAT score or the application?
Yeah.
So GMAT score is part of the application, is what I would like to say here. So your application consists of your GMAT.
I think they meant the essays.
Essays, yeah. So of course, both of them have similar weightages, I would say. So what should matter is your ACADS, your work experience, your GMAT or GRE, essays, and LOR. Those are the 5 things which should matter in a profile score. And then of course the interview. So look at this 6 things. Excuse me. Look at these 6 things and try to balance them as far as possible. So if your GMAT is lesser, try to get 2-3 other things in place: the CADS, work essays, or your interview. This is what I suggest to the candidates. So these are 6 key things. Try and balance them. That's the bottom line.
Guys, a gentle request to all of you. Amit is a associate director of admissions. He will not be able to answer your questions sufficiently and honestly about the careers, about placements, about international exchange program and all. ISB repetitively, conducts PGP info sessions. I think every Wednesday it is happening, and there will be sessions by the Career Advancement Council. You please pose these questions there. Please stay relevant to admissions as of now, and let's try to make full use of Amit's time, because he has given his time to us. So please stick to questions related to admission. Thank you. Yeah, this question has been posed by Giridhar, and it is again a very common question. Will career break be a factor during interview process or even while shortlisting?
So in terms of the evaluation, no, we don't look at what you've not done. We look at what you have done. But having said that, when you go to the interview, people are going to ask you about it for sure. What were you doing in those 2-3 years? And a lot of people take career breaks for 2-3 years to prepare for examinations, to get into competitive exams, government jobs, and so on and so forth. And that's perfectly fine. I think a lot of people do that. Some people take breaks because of medical reasons, personal reasons. So that's also okay. Now, what you have to do is that don't be defensive when you ask this question, why there's a break and what were you doing there at break. Even if you have break for preparation or for a personal issue, talk about how you grew as a person in those 2 3 years. Even if you failed, for example, you're preparing for bank PO and you did not get through for 2.5 years, and now you're coming to ISB as an alternate career. Talk about those 2.5 years as how it changed you as a person, because in failures also you learn and you evolve as a person, right? Talk about those aspects and you should be fine. So in fact, recently I was in Mohali campus and I met with somebody who had 6 years of work experience in the government sector. He had a 2 and 3 year break in which he was preparing for bank PO and armed forces and UPSC.
Right.
And he mentioned that, he did not take it defensively when they asked him about the career. He grew as a person in those 3 years. Those preparation, even if they fail, they helped him grow as a person. He knows now a lot of things about international geopolitics and so on and so forth, which helped him in the interview. So look at what you can gain from the break and talk about it positively. My advice.
Thank you, Amit. One more question, like how does ISB see the reapplicant? So I have always told everyone ISB is a very reapplicant friendly school. In fact, in the current batch, 2 of my mentees, one got through after getting rejected 2 times back to back, and the other got through just within a span of like 7-8 months, which means he got rejected in R2 last year, and then he got accepted in R1. But what is your take? What would you want to?
Sure. So we don't look at replicants with any bias because we feel that reapplicants are not rejected per se, but they are not yet ready for the journey.
Right.
And they may eventually be in a couple of years. So even if we look at the interview feedback, I'm sure since you are part of panel, there's a comment section in interviews, right, which we ask the candidates to fill in. And that serves as a feedback to the candidates. So reapplicants can actually reach out to us after the admission season has ended in May and June and ask us for the feedback on the last year's application. And we give them feedback on where things could have been better in terms of the profile and where things could have been better in terms of the interview. And that itself shows that we want you to reapply again and come back to the stronger application. So for us, you are not rejected, you are just not ready at this point in time. And hence, you applying again is definitely a no-brainer. So once you're ready, you'll definitely apply again. So do so. Please go ahead and apply because there's no bias. Only thing is that you will write one more essay which talks about how have you changed since the last application that you did to ISB.
Right. Many people apply with almost the same profile and with the same score, but maybe with better clarity of goals this time.
Exactly.
With better better written application, of course, and with a better performance in the interview eventually. And
exactly.
there are so many examples. And
so I, in fact, myself noticed that quite a few people, when they apply the first time around, they're not aware of the process. They have not talked to enough people. They have not practiced for the interview. And a lot of people fail to clear the interview stage or get enough marks or scores in the interview stage. So they reapply again next time with much better clarity. They are more likely to get through. So what I'll suggest to everybody is that, don't underestimate the interview and the application. If you're applying for the first time, give your best shot. Don't do it half-heartedly. And if you've done that, always, you have chances to improve next day with better feedback.
So Dheer is asking, will working in different verticals in the same organization, ranging from credit to operations to technology to HR, will be considered as diverse experiences?
So it will, I mean, not for the point of view of diverse scholarship, but definitely if you're working in different verticals in an organization, it gives you a lot of idea and awareness of how an organization works. And this will be really something which you can talk about in the interview and try and take your interview forward from a lot of experiences. And this also gives you a lot of advantage in the placements, is what I understand. Yes. At least in my time and now in around your time also in ISB, I guess people who have diverse experiences have a lot higher chances of getting into different verticals or general management roles, so on and so forth. So not from a diversity point of view, but definitely working in different verticals gives you some skill sets which can set you apart in ISB and maybe in placement process.
I distinctly remember during my time, people who had such kind of experiences, they had the maximum number of shortlist. They were never short of shortlist during the placement. And they were always like, they had so many choices. So yeah, eventually it will help, is I think that's what the message is at the end. Tarun, does personal startup building during college days is considered as an experience? I I will answer this on your behalf, Amit. So the
Sure.
technical total number of work experience is only considered once you have graduated. And his second part of the question is, and does it add value in your application? And the answer, according to me, is a big yes, because my entire application during my time, there were 3 mandatory essays and 1 optional essays. And my entire application was all about my startup during college, because I was an early entry applicant. So I had just joined the job. I didn't have so many great things to write about my full-time job. So all I did was to write about my college startup, and it worked out well in my favor. So Amit, if you want to add to something.
I think you captured it very well, in fact.
Okay, thanks. Rahul has asked, again, there's a very common questions from CA. CAs, will internship done in chartered accountancy course post-graduation be considered as work experience? I think it is not. Correct me if I'm
No,
wrong.
articleship, if he's talking about, that's not considered as work experience. So anything after your CA course is done is work experience, and not the articleship, which is part of your CA course.
Right. So I hope that answer the questions from all the CAs. I remember during my time, doctors' internships were considered as full-time work ex.
Yes,
Is it
we
the
do that.
case even now?
Even now, that's considered as full-time work experience. So because that's actually full-time work experience, and actually a work experience is part of the degree, but it's full-time. So you're not studying anything. So yes, that's considered as work experience.
Full-time and paid also. So
Paid also, yes.
I remember because I didn't have any proof of my stipend payment. So the AdCom had asked for some letter from the college. So I got a letter from the college that I was paid a stipend of this much, and they agreed, and that became the proof of my work experience.
Yes. So in general, about documents, so we're not very gung-ho about one particular set of documents. If you can just convince with any particular set of documents, it's fine. So we trust you. We just want one document which shows that you worked or you got a payment. That should be okay. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Amit. I don't think we have any other questions. I think we were very, very comprehensive, and it kind of demystified the entire process. And I hope it will help a lot of people. And there were so many myths that were floating around, and I'm pretty sure now when it's coming from you, it would be, I mean, people would be motivated to apply and will not really listen to random rumors.
So I'm glad I could, dispel some of the myths, and be happy to do so again in later rounds. If you want to reach out, I'll be happy to. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to also, connect there and answer a couple of queries if you have any. So thanks a lot for having me here, Anshul, and
always
a pleasure interacting with you and the candidates.
Thanks a lot for your time, that too on a weekend. It means a lot to the people of the group, and let's me and you wish everyone all the best.
Sure, all the best to everyone.
And thanks a lot. Ending this call, and thanks everyone for joining as well.